Jeannie Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have UALR law professor Robert Steinbuch joining us again. Today he's going to talk about the recent crime surge in Central Arkansas, as well as several lawsuits here in the state regarding gun rights. Hi, Professor. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be with you, Jeannie, again.
You recently wrote a letter to the editor, and it was published in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette about the crime in Little Rock. And you said that Little Rock is now in its deadliest year that it has seen in 3 decades. What prompted you, apart from that fact, to write this letter to the editor?
Well, it's been something that has been brewing in my head for some time, albeit maybe the precipitating event was that one that I wrote about in the letter, and that there was a carjacking attempt in the Heights in Little Rock. That's in the heart of Little Rock. And some thugs tried to shoot up a car with approximately 30 bullets. And 2 of the bullets struck one of the people in the car, the passenger, as it turns out, non-fatally. One grazed her and the other one hit her in the back, but it had decelerated as a consequence of going through parts of the car. So it didn't actually, it bruised her, but it didn't penetrate her skin. Thank goodness, of course. Mm-hmm. And by the way, she went and spoke with the mayor, and the mayor told her that he's praying for her. Now, that's all well and good, but prayers from a paid elected official is not enough. We need action. And so far, we've seen little or no action from this mayor. In fact, this mayor has really degraded the morale in the Little Rock Police Department. Everything that he's done regarding the police, perhaps, has been to the detriment of the sound operation of that police department. And it's really a shame. Of course, we well know the now somewhat famous case of the police officer who, in defending himself against a guy in a car who was driving at him and who had a gun, and this police officer shot that person, the mayor tried to fire him. In the end, he was reinstated, but they so abused him that ultimately he resigned.
We are seeing cases like this all across the country. This is not unusual to just the city of Little Rock. We are seeing crime surge across the nation right now. What is interesting to me is that we have, leftist politicians coupled with the media that is pushing this narrative forward. Whether it is when I looked up the Heights shooting, not one word about how many bullets struck the car. 30 is very significant, but on a national scale, we have the media and politicians calling things peaceful protests, or most recently, the car surged and ran over people in a Christmas parade. Not an individual, it was a car. And so we're seeing this narrative push forward. And so what are your thoughts? I mean, you're seeing this firsthand in Little Rock.
Yeah, maybe that is an assault car or a military style car. Of course, I'm mocking the less vernacular when it comes to owning a rifle, be it an AR-15 or similar platform. They have no understanding about guns at all. And they're perfectly entitled to be afraid of guns, not own a gun. But the Second Amendment guarantees Americans the right to firearms, the right to defend themselves. And the left has been working in earnest for decades to try to eliminate that constitutional right. As you know, I've got 3 lawsuits that I'm bringing collectively with an attorney that I often practice with, Chris Corbett, who you've had on your show. He's running for the State House up there in Conway, of course. And I think he's going to do well. And we brought 3 lawsuits to enforce Arkansans' existing state law rights to carry a gun. And the city of Little Rock has said, well, we don't like that law, so we're going to ignore it. The county has said, we don't like a different law that allows lawyers to carry guns in the courthouses, so we're going to ignore it. And the Fish and Game Commission said, we don't like that law. Get this, by the way, that says you're entitled to carry a concealed firearm at many places, including their gun range and the house, the building, the office on their gun range. By the way, that distinction is important. They say, oh, that's not an office, it's a house. A house? Who lives there, by the way, and who's paying the rent? So these are the absurd claims made by bureaucrats. And here's where you see the problem. When you get entrenched bureaucrats, it doesn't matter whether or not they're conservative, allegedly, or liberal, they become bureaucrats. And here's what bureaucrats believe. They're more important than you are. So you don't get to carry a gun. Oh, they've got armed guards. They've got all the security they want. They're protecting themselves, allegedly, from you. What they don't seem to understand is that they work for you and they work for me. And they should be saying, yes, sir, thank you, sir, not trying to violate our rights. And that's what they're doing. That's why Chris Corbin and I, are pursuing these issues, because we don't stand on the sidelines. We are active in enforcing the rights. My father told me, and I'm sure I've said this before in this show because I say it often, my father said, you have no rights unless you enforce them. So these gun rights, as of today, don't exist. Well, what do I mean by that? They don't exist because I can't carry a gun into City Hall. I can't carry a gun into the courthouse, and I can't carry a gun into the office at the Game and Fish gun range, by the way, because they say so. So even though on the books, the legislature has enacted these laws, the governor has signed these laws, these bureaucrats have decided they're more important than the legislature, they're more important than the governor, and most critically, that they're more important than you, the citizen of Arkansas. How dare they?
So what do you say to those who are heading into we're heading into election season? Little Rock has the mayor there. He's being challenged by Steve Landers. What do you say about that mayoral race and others that are coming up?
Absolutely. Well, of course, this mayor has to go. The city of Little Rock mayor has to go. And it's not a question of left or right, as I wrote in the letter to the editor. It's a question of right and wrong. And he's wrong. He's not performing the most basic function that any elected official must do: keep his citizens safe. He's not doing his job. And if he can't do his job, and he's demonstrated he's unable to do his job, he's got to go. So we've got to vote him out. Similarly, as I mentioned a moment ago, and you raise again, Chris is running for office. Now, here's the interesting thing about Chris running for the State House. He hasn't waited till he gets into the State House to write a bunch of laws to affect a positive outcome. As we just discussed, he has already brought lawsuits on behalf of the citizens of Arkansas, because just passing the law is not enough. If you run for office and all you do is say, well, I'm going to do it when I get to pass a law, then you're not doing enough. If you're a lawyer, how many public interest lawsuits have you brought? These are just 3 of the public interest lawsuits that Chris and I have brought on behalf of the people of Arkansas. If you're a true conservative, what have you done today to enforce the gun rights of Arkansans, the free speech rights of Arkansans, the rights to bodily integrity of Arkansans? If you can't answer that question with concrete actions, well, you're just a spectator. That's what you are. You belong up in the stands, not down on the playing field.
Speaking of bureaucrats, Governor Hutchinson is expected to call a special session on December 6th. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I hope that during that special session that the legislature has enough votes to bring up other issues. Because as you know, the governor calls a special session. He dictates what the topic of that special session is, but the legislature can bring up other topics if it gets a sufficient number of votes. It's not easy to do, and so I'm not sanguine necessarily that it will occur, but I'm hopeful nonetheless. And this is where we should start to use this as a litmus test for who we're going to vote for in the next election, because you just brought up, what are we doing with voting? Are your currently elected legislators voting to bring up important conservative ideals now? If the answer is no, they're spectators. If the answer is yes, they're on the field. And I'm only voting for people who can play the game and bring the ball forward on the field.
Well, before we let you go, going back to Little Rock and just the developments that are happening there, what is your hope for that city?
My hope is always springs eternal. Sadly, it doesn't necessarily line up with my expectations. As long as we have bureaucrats like King Scott, oh, did I say king? I meant mayor, I say mockingly, running this city will not accelerate. It will not advance. We have businesses that are under significant pressure because of the lack of safety and security. We need to have a city mayor who's dedicated to the health and safety of its public. And the first and foremost way a city manager, that is a mayor, even though we have another position called a city manager, talk about a waste of money. We've got 2 people allegedly managing this city. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Putting that aside, our mayor is busy trying to raise our taxes to get more giraffes into the zoo. Well, you know what? Maybe he should pull his neck down a little and look at what's affecting everybody on a daily basis. And that is the fact that we have more crime in this city today than we've had in decades. And he's the one sitting in the chair. He's the one that's making the calls. And if he can't get it done, somebody else should.
Well, and speaking of that tax hike, you know, Little Rock residents really came out and showed him that they were not in support of that. So that may be an indicator to come for that election.
Well, that is 100% true. And I sincerely want to thank many outlets, including Conduit, because Conduit got the word out. Conduit is statewide, but of course they're concerned with each and every election because it affects all Arkansans. And Conduit, amongst others, got the word out. Go vote no on this terrible tax hike. And we won. And we won.
Well, thank you for always joining us on Conduit. You provide amazing insight. We hope to have you back on again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Julie.